Hello, friends. Nicholas here. Devo TED Talks, Devoted Talks, depending on how you want to say it. So the last episode I talked about Hymn of Promise, but then I got stuck on that seasons they turn, 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 turn. Like again, things move and things progress and they keep going and they come back around. And one of my talks and some of my blogs have been about the spiral of return. And sometimes we get defeated and painfully so with regards to how it feels or seems sometimes when we keep coming back to these same lessons that we think we should have learned and we should be better than or have gotten through or whatever. But like again, these are these predicated or idealistic beliefs about the way things should be or should have gone or need to have gone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's setting yourself up for shame and potentially resentment, because if you're trying to be something before you're that, how do you know that that's what you're supposed to be in the first place? Like, where do we get, at what point do we figure out who we are? Well, yoga and Ayurveda would say meditation and stillness and checking in and reducing the amount of stimulation, making sure there's not overstimulation to get to a calm point, not necessarily om and sitting in lotus position and, looking like a true quote unquote Himalayan yogi, but like you're stilling the fluctuations of the mind so that you can see what your true rhythm is, right? What your true pulse is. Like we talk about marching to the beat of a different drum, but like, what is your rhythm? What is your drum beat? What is yours, right? If our mind is throwing us up and down, we can't find that middle space, that steady space from which everything originates in the first place. And so getting to through regular practice and or a regular routine, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, do we start to find this rhythm, because we then notice ourselves in relation to these consistent things that happen in our lives. And so I can then measure myself against the consistency rather than the outliers or the things that change. And so as the seasons turn, the more stable we can be in our rhythms within the context of the seasons, within the context of becoming, then we are better able to notice who we really are rather than who either we want to be or are striving to be or we're told that we should be or is expected of us to be. And I haven't lived my life that way. And you know what has been the product of that is me constantly chasing things because I thought that's what I wanted to be, just to get there and realize that I didn't like it anyway. And what has been cool about the studio is I knew I couldn't work for people anymore. Like I was tired of it. And then I hated piecemealing all of my work, traveling around to do stuff. And for some people, traveling and going into different places and not having overhead may be something beneficial and good for you. But for me, I need stability. I need regularity. And I mean, with the studio, I'm just now getting into a rhythm where I feel like I can do it all. But it took a while. It was very exhausting at first. It was very tiring to build the chops and the stamina to do this. But now that I have been doing this rhythm for a while now, I've now had the space to think about what else could be useful here. What do I need to make this happen? What would look good here? Instead of trying to do it all at once, I have, through steady rhythm, allowed myself to find what I really want rather than just what I think I would need. Right? Like some of the stuff I bought for the studio before I even knew where I was going to be at. And like, I didn't know what the shape of the studio was going to be. And that doesn't make sense. And I think that's a good metaphor for life. You're buying stuff to fill your life with, but you don't even know if it's going to be useful in the next season of your life. And what do you do with that? Well, you may have to sell it off later. That may be the first thing that happens. But also, you may find that you didn't buy it for you in the first place. Maybe you bought it to move it on to the next owner that's going to have it, and you were just the stepping stone for it to get there. Maybe there was purpose in it. I believe there was purpose in it. I don't know if you believe that there was purpose in it, but what if there was? I'm going to go with it that there is purpose in me buying the things that I then gift to somebody else, or I sell to somebody else, or move along even to goodwill. Maybe I'm supposed to put in goodwill so that person who will walk by it one day is like, oh, I need that, right? And so then life doesn't feel like a waste. I know when you type something and you lose it and then you're like, ah, oh, such wasted time, and oh, I put all that effort and now I have to do it again. But if that is the way of things for the highest good of all, then there's nothing wrong with the fact that it happened, because maybe it prevented you from being on the road and you missed an accident, or maybe you missed tripping down the stairs. I mean, I have had some times where I'm like, I wish I had just not walked outside when I did and I didn't fall and scrape my knee. But then again, maybe I fell to scrape my knee so that I didn't get hit by a car when I was riding my bike. I don't know, right? And so if you can resign to the fact that you don't know everything and you couldn't possibly know everything, and that the things that are happening are partially influenced by choice and action at any given moment, plus the greater machinations of the universe, right? The only thing that could prevent you from, serving your purpose, and even then I could argue that it serves a purpose in that, in its own right, would be to not get out of bed, not eat, not drink, and decide to die. But that has waves of its own that impact others around you, the medical professionals who find you, or the first responders that find you, or your family and friends that love you, or whatever. There's waves and there's impacts. And so our choices are important, but it's not always about our choice for the impact and the ripples and the change that happens. It goes back to the last episode, Unrevealed Until Its season, something God alone can see. It's not just something becoming that is unrevealed. There are movements and orbits and gravitas and gravity and things that are constantly moving and circulating and energizing and depleting around you and around the world, that will fulfill themselves, that will come to fruition, that will be what they're meant to be in their right time. And you are playing your role in the piece of it that you are best suited for, right? Have you ever tried to get somewhere to do something, but it just felt like everything was pushing back against you getting there and doing it? I had the recent experience with my going to my conference. I mean, I was like, man, I can't get there for the life of me. And that had its purpose. And you know what happened because of that? I got so much done in the studio, and I was able to have the space to do the things I needed to do in the studio. And now the studio is ready for when people start really funneling in back in the fall. Sadly, this week has been pretty slow, but the space is ready, right? I was having a conversation with my sister. Like, people, places, things cannot, or like experiences cannot fill into your life if there's not a space for them, right? And sometimes it doesn't require, certain things don't require a lot of space to infiltrate and become a part of your life, but some do. And so being able to recognize which ones need bigger and more, like getting the studio ready to have a vibe and a feel and a setup that works, is a bigger move than, say, I don't know, standing out the front door and asking people to come in and check it out. I don't know what I was trying to say there. But anyway, I was able to get things done, and the seasons have turned. And so I realized that subconsciously I had created phases, and I am just wrapping up. I need a couple more things to wrap up phase 2 of the studio. And when I finally was like, oh yeah, and then there's a phase 3 that I will get to as I am rolling through it, but that doesn't have to be today. Unrevealed Until Its season, something God alone can see, but I can see it too, because one, I have God in me. Maybe you don't believe that, but I believe that. I believe that there's a divine spark in each of us that connects us to the divine, that connects us to the whole universe, right? The yogis believe you can understand the universe by meditating and going inward through the subtle layers. I believe that as well. Um, and so I would argue that you can get in contact with the divinity to find or get indications for when it will be revealed, and or the peace and calm to wait for it through that connection and trust and faith. All right, my friends, be well, be free.